Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my live streams. This is Comics Today. This is a show that we do every single Wednesday night to celebrate the best day of the week, that being New Comic Book Day. And typically during this show, we talk about some news and current events, and I oftentimes have a guest on the show that helps me to make sense of something that is happening out there in the world of comic books and collectibles. And tonight we are going to have a guest on that is going to help me to make sense of what might be happening in the market with the card collectors coming into the comic book world and the impact that that may or may not be having on comic book prices. This guy reached out to me shortly after a live stream that I did a few weeks ago with Doug, and I think Alan was on this one, where we talked about comic book crashes and comic book corrections and things like that. This guy reached out to me and just provided me with all kinds of information. And I'm looking forward to the conversation that we are going to have tonight, because I think many people out there are going to find this conversation enlightening and informative as well. And if this is your first time watching one of my videos, I definitely want to encourage you to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, because our mission here is to help you to make sense of comic book collecting. And we do so in a very practical, common sense type of way. I want to say hello to some folks, specifically the comic book soldiers that have joined me for this live stream right now. And the way that we do it on this show on Wednesday night is to have people shout out the books that they picked up at their LCS earlier today. And if they read something, to let us know what they read and if we should put that book on the top of our stack. So I'm going to be going to the chat here momentarily to see what folks picked up today. And I will tell you that I did not make it to the LCS today. I did not make it today because I started work early. I worked all day. It's a long day. And then I decided to do an impromptu live stream talking about the CGC pricing that was just released earlier today. So instead of doing what I was supposed to do, which is to go to the LCS, I did a live stream. So if you guys haven't seen that live stream, I definitely want to encourage you to check that one out, because it was, I think, an informative live stream, because I go through all of the price changes that CGC has put into place and kind of talk about maybe the ramifications, the pros and cons and stuff like that. And honestly, as I was going through the data with you guys live, I even had a few epiphanies about some of what I was seeing that I did not notice the first time that I reviewed it. So again, that live stream is out there for your viewing pleasure. With that, I'm going to go ahead and go to the chat to see what folks are talking about. I saw somebody say, Gibbon smashed the like button. Always a good thing, because it does indeed help with the Google algorithm. So I'm scrolling through some of the comments here, scrolling through a couple of people shouting out Neo, and the OG Blue Wrench is Tina's like, who is Neo? I am going to tell you who Neo is in just a moment, so bear with me. Thundercats newsstand and some other back issues. JR, that's what's up, man. Thundercats is all the rage right now. At one point in the 100K collection, I want to say I found 40 copies. I think I found like 35 to 40 copies of Thundercats #1. Shout out to all those Patreon members that were able to get a copy of Thundercat from me before Thundercat became a thing as of late. So shout out to Patreon members and all those folks that are out there snagging Thundercats right now. Scrolling through some of the comments here, see what else you guys are talking about. My man, L. Smith. L. Smith never lets me down. He never lets me down. And he also never lets his LCS down, because this guy is there every single week picking up some stuff. He says another week with a big stack of books, including Black Knight, Curse of the Ebony Blade, issue #2, Alien 2, Gung Ho Sexy Beast, that Reggie Collects variant. I don't think he got that, because he got that at the LCS, so it wasn't the Reggie Collects. The Mighty Out Valkyries #1, Old Guard. I was looking at that. The Old Guard Tales Through Time #1, and a few others. I read Alien 1. I'm not quite certain what's happening with Alien 1. I'm going to be honest with you. The artwork did not speak to me. The story, okay. Brother L. Smith, read Alien 2. Let me know what you think. Let me know if it's worth picking up. Same thing with Old Guard. I read the original Old Guard. It was incredible. Incredible read. They made a movie out of it. I enjoyed it. This Old Guard Tales Through Time, I'm not sure about that one, so let me know about that. Juggernaut, where did he go? There he is. He said he picked up Radiant Black #3. #3, yeah, I guess #3 is out. I read #1. It was okay. I have not read 2, and I did not pick up 3 yet because I have not been there. He did. Oh, you snagged the Ultra Mega from Skybound. Issue #1 was a good read. They sent me a preview of issue 2. I haven't read it yet, but I will get to it. Picked up Spawn 8 and 12, Alien 2, Tankers 1, a Star Wars book. I think that's what that is. And issue #1 foil. Good stuff. Good stuff, Juggernaut. Let me see what else. Doug picked up back issues. What does that say? A day or two ago. Okay. And got Joker #2. That's what's up. Alex, the comic hoarder, is in the house. How you doing, my friend? It is always good to see you in here. Found out Alex and I at one point were bidding on the same set of low number Amazing Spider-Man books when I was visiting his home state. It's always awesome to bid against a friend and then realize it. I don't know if you ever got those books. I didn't get them. So maybe you got them. Scrolling through some of the comments here, see what else people are talking about. Somebody shouting out some of the things that CGC announced earlier today. I definitely want to encourage people to check out the video that I dropped earlier today. L. Smith is reminding me that he did indeed pick up a few copies. That's what's up. What I was saying, and that's my bad, was that you didn't get my variant from the LCS. You got probably the regular cover or something like that from the LCS. So, but thank you, brother, for your support. I definitely appreciate that. All right. Scrolling through some of the comments here. Scrolling. Steve is shouting out my comic shop, which I'm a huge fan of. Monthly pull is in the mail. Can't wait. He's getting two Berserker #1 second prints in there. That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Good stuff. I do love my comic shop. I will tell you that. Scrolling through some of the comments here. What is this? Are Valiant comics signed worth anything? Not sure where they came from. Have a ton of them. Yeah, man, there are some Valiant books definitely that are worth a couple of bucks. You know, you would definitely have to do your research, jump online and see what you can find in terms of prices for them. That's like the best piece of advice I can kind of give you here on the fly. Scrolling through some of the comments here, Surge picked up Spider-Woman 10. Very cool. And I think it's at #11. Yeah, and #11. Scrolling through, let me see what else folks picked up. What is that? Juggernaut, thanks again for your awesome Gung Ho variant. Absolutely used. Great. That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Thank you, brother. I definitely appreciate the continued support of the things that we are doing here by the channel. Who is that? Shadow? Got my Berserker 1 second print. The foil. Anything with foil, sign me up for that. I actually got 2 copies sitting over here off to the side of that Berserker book because of the foil. There you go. I think a lot of us are sitting on those Valiant books. I have an entire bin. No, take that back. I have a bin in the personal collection, and I have several bins in the extended collection focused on Valiant, and fingers crossed that those books will at some point have some value. There are some good stories in there. I will tell you that. Outside of the dollars and cents value, there's actually some entertaining stuff there. I actually went back probably over a year ago and reread a lot of that Valiant stuff from the beginning. Still enjoy some hardcore. Still enjoy that. Foil is nice. Rivals Chrome, and that's what's up. What is this? Matt Woods is he's putting it out there. He says Turok 1 will see its day someday. That is actually the second time that this book has come up. We've done 2 live streams today, and this is the second time that it's come up. Sooner or later, every comic has its day in the sunshine. And eBay is reminding me of a search that I set up, trying to keep my powder dry. Scrolling through some of the comments, see what you guys are talking about. Again, if you went ahead and you picked up some comics today as part of New Comic Book Day, go ahead and shout out what you picked up. If you read something that was pretty dope, that we should all put on the top of our stacks, go ahead and let us know that. If you want to mention your LCS as well, because this is a celebration of New Comic Book Day, and LCSs are a vital part of all of that stuff. So, all right. So I think I'm pretty. Stray Dogs #3. Says Adam, how you doing, brother? It's good to see you. Thank you for shouting that one out. Turok was everything for everybody back when it came out. There was a lot of stuff that came out back in the day that we were all like, "This is dope." And I mean, look, I mean, what is it? Darkhawk is now having his day. It's been 30 years. He's back. His comic is worth some cash. He has a new series coming out. He has a toy, right? I mean, maybe Turok is gonna have a resurgence in another 10 years or something like that. Just to give a shout out here for Amazing Spider-Man 362 saying starting to pick up some steam. Scrolling through, who is that? I'm sitting on a ton of Valiant and Image books from the 90s. You and me both, friend. If you happen to have some Spawn books in there, man, I definitely encourage you to go through those. No doubt about that one. Milt is giving a shout out for a couple of books here that he picked up. Good stuff. Good. All right. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, a few weeks ago, I started having a couple of live streams and a couple of conversations about comic book crashes and comic book corrections. And I am still of the opinion that we are not going to experience a comic book crash the same way that we did in the 90s. And there are lots of reasons why this is not the 90s. Lots of reasons, many of which I've covered in several different videos, right? One of the wonderful things that I think Doug brought to the service, Doug Bratton, who is a blogger for the channel and a frequent guest on the channel, one of the wonderful things that he brought up is what is the definition of a crash? And as it relates to comics, it is a wonderful question because I don't know that anyone has ever, defined it. I think that people throw out the term crash without truly understanding what that means or describing what it means. So oftentimes people say it's going to be a crash and they just harken back to that. It's going to be like that. Well, no, because it is night and day difference between those two things. Now, with that said, I do believe that there could be a correction in the market, and a correction in a market is a healthy thing. It happens. It is part of what happens. But what we are seeing here, we are very focused on what's happening with comics, but the reality is that these price increases are being seen not just in comics, but in collectibles as a whole, and not just in comics and collectibles, but many other sectors that are out there, whether you're talking about houses or RVs or like pool values are going, like everything is going up because people have a lot more disposable income. And so there was this whole series of conversations that were had on the channel talking about crashes and corrections. And this guy reached out to me, and we had this wonderful exchange. And he's like, if you ever need to talk to someone about cards, let me know. And I honestly get so many messages that his message got pushed down the page. And I put up a post and I said, hey, if you are the trading card guy that I spoke to a couple of weeks ago, I need you to send me a message. He sent me a message, and then we had another exchange about him coming on the show to spend a little time with me. And so to that point, I want to introduce my man, Rob. Rob, welcome. Welcome to Comics Today. It is good to see you.
What is going on, Reggie?
Another guy with a wonderfully rich voice. It is good.
A voice for YouTube, not a face.
What'd you say? Say it again.
I said a voice for YouTube.
Got it. I always tell people, look, I've got a great voice and I also have a handsome face. So let's just cut to the chase. But I appreciate you carving out some time, my man. I appreciate you reaching out to me and having a couple of really wonderful exchanges with me that have helped me to understand what is happening from your perspective as a trading card collector. So I want to thank you for that. By way of introduction, can you take like a 10 seconds here and tell people who you are, what your channel is, so that they have some context for where you come from?
Sure. My name's Rob. I am the proprietor of Northeast Ohio Sports Cards, a sports card YouTube channel that is about to hit 1 year old next month. So I've been doing it for just under a year now. Have been collecting sports cards for about 3 years now. Collected them as a kid and also collected a lot of comic books back in the 90s. So I do have some roots in the comic book market. I think one of the first, when I entered the comic book market, was Jim Lee #1 X-Men was one of the first comic books that I ever bought. So that kind of places me in that era.
It dates you. It dates
Yes.
you to a very specific time, which is a wonderful time in comics. Jim Lee is an incredibly talented creator. So shout out to Jim. So, but you also your name's Rob, and it's Northeast Ohio Sports Card, but you go by, they call you Neo, I guess.
Yeah, people have shortened it to Neo, I think, just to keep it simple and short.
Yeah, because we had a couple of people in here shouting out Neo, and folks are like, well, what is a Neo? Like, who is a Neo? Right now, Neo is Rob, and it stands for Northeast Ohio Sports Card. And so congratulations on hitting your 1 year mark. I had the privilege, honestly, of watching some of your content, and I did not know that it was you. I didn't connect the dots. And what happened was I had a lot of people that were reaching out to me saying there's this card guy talking about comics, and people would send me links and I would go and watch some of the content. I'm like, oh, this is some interesting stuff. He's got a perspective. And then, it all comes like full circle where we're now talking, and I'm realizing that you're the person that I was actually watching. And in my own defense, in the videos that I watch, you actually didn't show your face. So I also wasn't making that connection between the face and the content. So one of the very first questions, Rob, that I want to ask you just right off the top is, and we're gonna dig into it, but I want like a very specific question. Are card collectors driving up the price of comics?
I don't think we're the sole reason, but we have definitely entered the market and made some purchases for sure. I don't think the full, as I like to joke on my channel, I say we turned the Eye of Sauron onto the comic book market to focus in on you guys. Like I said, I don't think we're the sole reason why, but there are definitely, I see the messages, the DMs, the chatter on sports card discords of people saying, oh, look, I picked up this, or yeah, you know what, I'm jumping in this market too, or, that sort of stuff is 100% happening.
And it sounds like it's not just this one or two people. You're hearing it enough in enough places to feel like there is a movement, if you will, that is pointing in this direction. My question to you next is, why is this happening? And again, we're going to keep digging into this, and we're going to kind of drill through it. But from your vantage point, why is this happening?
I think a big reason why is twofold. One, it's a safety / stability thing. Mm-hmm. So anyone that's invested in a lot of sports cards, you could take losses and gains both very quickly. You're investing in someone that's playing on the court, on the field, that's a real life human being in the world. That opens up the possibilities for any number of things to happen. An injury, an off the court / field incident that can instantly change the value of your card overnight, from it being $1,000 card to a $300 card, or $1,000 card to a $1,500 card, mm-hmm. depending on what's going on. So there's a lot of risk there that can happen. Whereas comic books, you don't have that as much. Sure, there's some downside risk. Prices can fluctuate, but I don't ever have to worry about Spider-Man doing something wrong in the news. I don't have to worry about Cyclops breaking a leg. The other thing that is extremely appealing is, and this is where a lot of the comic book side of things comes out and says, well, wait a second. No, this doesn't make what you're doing doesn't make sense. Why are you guys doing this? And that comes to your guys' census counts.
Hold on. Let's hold on. I want to dig into that. I want to dig into that a little bit more. So what I'm hearing you initially say is that trading cards or sports cards, let's put it that way, are risky because of the many things that could happen that could take a valuable card and basically reduce it to nothingness. And so the card guys coming into comics might be a form of de-risking their portfolio, diversifying their portfolio. Is that how you would categorize it? Is that what they're attempting to do?
I believe so. That's why I entered it, and a lot of people that I talked to have entered it as well. You have let's just say $10,000 sports card collection. Okay, let me move 3,000 of this and buy $3,000 worth of comic books. And that's the other thing. It's easier I don't want to say it's easier for us to enter the market, but we have a liquid collectible asset already that we could just easily sell and then go buy into another collectible assets. We're almost trading it. I could trade this PSA 10 whatever rookie card and go pick up an ASM 361 and 316, and my checkbook stays the same. My portfolio changes, but no real money came out of the checkbook that pays the bills or whatever.
So from your vantage point, do you think that it is only about the dollars and cents, or is there actual interest on the part of these collectors that are coming into comics to actually be part of appreciating the artwork? Or is it simply about the dollars? And there's no wrong answer to that. It's really about understanding who these people might be. And again, I'm kind of asking you to speak for like all trading card guys. So it's like, feel free to like caveat it the way that you need to be able to feel comfortable making these statements.
I mean, I think the correct answer is it's both. There are definitely some people strictly coming in for, okay, I could buy this book at $1,000. They're probably going to announce a movie or something. I could sell it for $2,000 or $1,500 even, or maybe even $3,000 or whatever. Or I could sit on it for 5 years because it's maybe more, not necessarily something modern, but like a true grail, like a giant size X-Men that you could purchase and feel comfortable sitting on that forever. But I do think there's a lot of people that, like me, collected this stuff in the 90s and have a nostalgia factor and now have disposable income that they can put into something like this because they already have disposable income in a collectible asset.
Right. So
they could just slide that right on over, and you get the benefit of, hey, cool, I get this nice piece of artwork that I could put up in my office along with my, Luka, Zion, Trey, whatever, sports cards that you may have on display as well. I mean, as you guys are all well aware, comic books make great display pieces. Yeah,
they sure do. Yeah. So one of the things that you mentioned to me when we spoke before, because it almost seems like there was like a switch that was flipped, where like all of a sudden it felt like these trading cards guys were in the market, and people were saying that to me, and I was like, I don't know about that, right? But I think that I may have been wrong, and I'm not too big to say that I might have been wrong on that. But what do you think opened the door for the trading card guys to start looking at comics? And you said it to me when we spoke previously. I just want you to kind of repeat it back to me so that everybody can hear like what you think was the thing that opened the door for trading card guys to come over.
I think it was a combination effect of scarcity, which I know that we'll get into, a sudden switch in the sports card market 3 to 4 months ago of, let's look for things that there's not a lot of and put money into that stuff. And then also what happened right around the first of the year, where Marvel trading card prices went nuts. And a lot of the sports card guys were buying those up, grading them to sell. So I think, I don't know all of it, but I think that was kind of also like a gateway drug entrance of, hey, this Spider-Man Black Suit 90 Marvel Series 1 trading card and a PSA 10 sells for $2,000. That's a pretty nice return when you buy the boxes and send it in the grade just like you'd buy a raw comic. And then all of a sudden your head starts spinning forward of like, well, if a Black Suit Spider-Man PSA 10 sells for this, what does his comic sell for? And I could see how there's, you start crossing over. Plus, as if you guys, your market has probably seen last year, there's a lot of new people coming in, and a lot of the stigmas have been torn down over the years. Being a comic book collector isn't uncool anymore when Disney's printing money left and right and everyone's going to see these movies.
And everybody's like, help me to understand what I'm watching here. Tell me, what does this mean? And who is this guy? How do you pronounce that? Right? Like, that's the stuff. It's now kind of cool, right? But it sounds like the Marvel trading card phenomenon that I just avoided like the plague is part of what like maybe opened the door for trading card folks to start looking at comic book related properties. And to where you've tried to go a couple of times here, part of what has attracted them and gotten them to stay are the census numbers. Talk a little bit about the census numbers and why our census numbers look so attractive to a sports card collector.
So the sports card world pretty much revolves around graded cards. That's where all the money's tied up at. That's the most liquid thing in the market. Yeah, there's a lot of raw sales, just like I'm sure there is in the comic book world. any YouTube channel you watch, anyone you talk to, it all focuses around PSA 10s, which for those that don't know is they're the CGC of trading cards, of sports cards and non-sports cards. So a PSA 10 is equivalent to a CGC 9.8, essentially. And there's this fascination with the highest grade and low pop count. We say pop count in the sports card world instead of census numbers. And when you look at sports cards pop counts, and then you look at a comic book census, the numbers are astronomically, yes.
And that's because there's so many different people that make a rookie card for a specific character, or person. I speak in one term, right? One language. But because of that, everybody has their print run, if you will, of that rookie card, and it all adds up to a lot of cards being out there. Keep going with your thought there.
Essentially, yeah, there's one company that makes like basketball cards, but they have different sets that come out.
There we go.
It's all under one umbrella. They kind of control it to a degree. That's Panini that makes pretty much all the basketball cards and football cards. Topps does all baseball cards. So, but yes, you're right. So like Zion Williamson is one of the more popular NBA players. In just one of his cards, there's 16,000 PSA 10s of just his Prism. That's just one card. And like you mentioned, there are different variations. Think of variant covers. And there are also different brands that all have various population counts of their individual cards. So all of a sudden, if you live in this world and you see those numbers, and then you come over and you go, and this is where most of the arguments in the comments on my videos, or if I get in comic book Facebook groups or whatever.
Don't do that.
The example that I always go to, because this is the one that always seems to catch the most heat, is New Mutants 98. Mm-hmm. I look at New Mutants 98 and see, I think it's like a 4,000 census count, something like that around there. And I go, that's not that many. And the comic book guard goes, you're nuts.
That's a lot.
Why are you spending because when I bought mine, it was like $1,000. And I remember doing a video saying, I'm investing $1,000 into this book. And some people from the comic book market were like, I don't know, $1,000, you're paying like peak prices. This doesn't make a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. That sort of thing. And then once again, I'm looking at this and going, there's only 4,000 of these.
Yeah.
On the sports card side, if I want a Zion rookie, I have a million options. Yep. If I want the first appearance of Deadpool, it's New Mutants 98. If I want it in a CGC 9.8, there's 4,000 of them.
That's it.
There could be, high grade raw books out there. Yep. But we don't see that. And, I don't know how many of those would eventually get graded and how big that census count could get. You may have a better feel for that. But I just don't think 4,000 in the old comic book market probably was a lot. But now you have us coming in. I think you just have general new people coming in from just the MCU phenomenon. And all of a sudden that 4,000 number gets pretty small, pretty quick, in my opinion.
Yeah. So as a result of card guys having large pop counts, looking at comics, seeing what we think are high census numbers, they see small numbers. As a result of what you see and you perceive based upon, your interpretation of that information, what I'm hearing is that you guys are willing to take free money from your assets and invest over here. And even if you pay a premium for that, you're actually quite comfortable with that. But while you're doing that, you're actually pushing up the price of that book because we weren't buying it, but you are, which now sets a new high. And as more, sports cards guys come over and look at what people are seeing in terms of census numbers, that number keeps creeping up. Do you think that there are certain types of books that sports cards guys are going after? Or is it kind of run the gamut? Is it really like these modern keys that folks are looking for in super high grade, like the 9.8s? Or do you think that they're buying up Silver Age and maybe even Golden Age and Bronze Age books? Is there an age that we can put some brackets around, or is it too widespread to characterize it that way?
I mean, the people that I talk to and that I see messages on and comments on, most of it seems to be from the mid 80s to the early 2000s, like that, copper-ish age into, I don't know where modern technically starts for you guys, but if anyone even knows,
it's like 40 years. Nobody worries about it. Go ahead.
And I think a lot of that goes to most sports card collectors are 35 to 45. So whenever you jump into a new market, you're going to go with what you know, and a lot of it could be just, hey, I remember having New Mutants 98 as a kid. Deadpool's a cool character. Let me go buy this. Or I really like Spider-Man as a kid. Let me go get an ASM 300 or a 252 or a 361 or what, pick whatever modern or copper age key that you want. And I think that's at least part of the reason why you're seeing so much price jumps in those 90s junk comic book era prices that are going crazy. And a lot of your people are like,
what's happening?
What is going on?
Yeah.
This doesn't make any sense.
And the challenge with it is that, to your point with your very first comment, there are a lot of things at play, right? The pandemic is creating, a lot of extra disposable income. People are sitting at home with not a whole lot to do, and they're like rediscovering their childhood. You have, other collectibles rising in value, and people are cashing out and having some money to play with. Some people are being priced out of these other collectibles that they're interested in. There's the MCU that is happening, which is causing all kinds of speculation. So there is this just convergence of several different things all at once that are affecting the value of just about every collectible out there. From your vantage point, as you think about, your peers out there that are, coming over, do you think that what we are experiencing right now is going to be a short-term thing, or do you see this continuing on for some time? Like, what does your gut tell you about this?
I don't think it's ever going to go back to the before times. Like, I don't think, to use New Mutants 98 again, I don't think you're ever buying that book again for $500. Could you get it for $1,500, $1,000 again? Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's ever going back to what it was a year and a half ago, like pre-pandemic prices.
Why do you think that? I mean, I'm guessing it's not just because of you, but maybe it's the convergence of everything we talked about. But what's your thought around why it's not going to revert back, if you will?
I just think, like, people are creatures of habit. And once they start doing something and get into something, I just don't see them just all of a sudden completely throwing it to the side and then being like, forget this comic book and card nonsense. There's going to at least be a certain segment that came into, whether it's the card market or the comic book market, that actually, over the last year and a half, that actually finds that maybe they actually kind of like this and enjoy it a little bit, and you're going to retain a certain percentage of that. Right. So even if a certain percentage of people leave and just go, okay, I'm going to sell all my stuff, the world's back to normal, let's go to Disneyland, there is going to be a certain percentage of people that stays. Yep. And one of my bigger concerns, just as the all collectible markets, is I think there will be a slight pullback once things do start getting back to normal. I just think that's only natural. And like you said earlier on, prices can only stay high for so long. They peak up, there's a slight sell-off, then they re-level off at whatever the new floor is.
Yep.
And like, to your point about a crash, it's crash back to what? Like, if the market crashes in, say, a year, are we crashing back to 2018 prices? Or are we crashing back to mid 2020 prices, which is still higher than they used to be by a lot?
Yep. Well said, brother. Because that is, like, I think for a lot of people, when they say crash, first, again, I don't think that they really know what they're saying, right? They're using a term without really knowing what the definition of that thing is, right? And what I think people hope is that there will be a crash and things will become cheap again. And I don't know that that's going to happen, right? As sad as that may be, as happy as that may be, I don't know, right, what people emotionally think about that. But I don't think that we're going to see some of these books go back to being super inexpensive again. And I hope that I'm wrong about that, because it would be great. I would love to pick up several other books that are like super hot right now. Part of the reason why I asked you that question is because I feel like some people are fearful of sports cards guys coming in because they think that they're going to suddenly withdraw. And when they withdraw, the market will crash. What I'm hearing you say is that that may not happen. There may be some people that pull back, but there potentially could be newer collectors that have come into the hobby just generally and naturally that are maybe going to catch and pick up some of that slack. But I think that that's one of the big fears, that suddenly all of the new people are going to pull out and things are going to collapse. Do you think that that's possible? And I think you kind of already answered it, but I want to again ask a very direct question. Do you think that there could be a sudden withdrawal of all of these new collectors for whatever reason when the pandemic is over?
I don't think so. I think it would take something outside the world of comics, even crazier than a pandemic to happen for everything just to go back to the before times, when cards and comics look dirt cheap compared to today's prices, like 2018, 2019 prices. I don't know what that event could possibly be. I just don't see it ever getting back to there. Like I said, could I see it getting back to summer 2020 prices? Sure, that could happen. And I think a lot of the sports card people coming in are also viewing, at least I know I am personally, and a lot of people that I talk to are viewing comic books as the long-term hold. So, we flip sports cards left and right. We move in and out of a sports card sometimes in the same day, depending on the selling platform. And usually cyclical, like within seasons, you buy in the summer, sell in the fall before the next sports season starts. I think there's a certain segment that are coming in and going, okay, I could park a few thousand or whatever number they want to put into it into a bunch of Spider-Man keys, X-Men keys, or whatever, put them up on the wall, and then worry about them in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, depending on the level of book that we're talking about, and treat it more like a long-term hold asset and not worry about, okay, it's up 500 this month, it's down 500 next quarter. Oh, it went up 750 the following quarter. They're going to look at it more like a macro sense, like you'd look at almost like a mutual fund or a 401k. What's it doing over the last 2 years, 3 years, 5 years?
Why do you think that is? Why day trade sports cards and then mutual fund, if you will, a comic? Because I mean, that's not exactly a great analogy, but I think you get my point. Why that mind shift switch between the two different assets that way?
I think it goes back to the volatile nature of the sports card market.
Okay.
Of a lot of stuff could happen, and a lot of the prices, like you'll see guys like rookies come into the league, and their sports card prices will be astronomically higher than some of the best players of all time because of the hype. And the just like you see when Marvel announces a new show and prices go nuts, and it's like, well, wait, why is I don't know? I'll just pull something out of why is Young Avengers #1 selling for more than, I don't know if this is the case anymore, like an ASM 252, which there's not that many of, which
right.
It's the first appearance of Black, all that stuff, and people start to like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, what are we doing here, guys? And then usually what ends up happening is those prices pull back fairly quickly. So you'll see these younger stars flame out fast. And then within 2-3 years, sometimes less, they were the hottest thing on earth. Their prices were super expensive. And then next thing you know, they're in a $1 bin.
Got it.
Or a $5 bin. When we look at comics, I just don't know that I see, say Spider-Man 90s keys. I don't see that ever getting to that point. Maybe I'm completely wrong on this, but I just don't see an Amazing Spider-Man 361 ever just going back to being like a $200-$300 book like it was,
or being in a $1 bin. Like this just never going to happen, right?
Yeah, there's going to be a floor on that stuff, and nobody really knows what it is. But that floor is still going to be a lot higher than probably 98% of people in sports cards. Sports cards really is a large game of hot potato. You're just passing it on to the next guy. He's going to get into it, or girl, make their profit, sell it to the next person, and hope you're not the last one holding the bag, essentially, unless you're really putting money in like your all-time great players, like, like a Jordan, a Bird, a Magic, Mantles, that's a different story if you're in that game. But if you're in the more modern sports card market, it is a big game of hot potato, honestly.
Do you guys have I know you have pricing services, but how up to date are your pricing services? Because what I'm hearing is I'm hearing day trading, right? And to do like proper day trading with stocks, you need a ticker that is like super up to date so that you can capitalize on every uptick or offset a downward tick. Do you guys have pricing services that react that fast, or like how are you guys deciding like what's super hot this moment versus not so hot literally the next moment?
So within the last year or so, there has been a couple large data tools that have come out that are literally almost like that. I subscribe to one that literally updates every single day. I could pull charts, graphs. I could do comparisons on what a PSA 10 selling for compared to a PSA 9 on an individual player across different sets. It shows trend line, like the whole 9 yards.
Is this it? Is it called Market Movers?
Yes, that's one of the ones out there. There's Card Ladder. There's about 5 or 6 products. Card Ladder and Market Movers are probably the 2 biggest, but they're an entire data suite built around, sucking all the information out of the card market with prices. The simple and short answer is what most people probably use in comic books as well as eBay sold listings.
Yeah. Okay.
For just a quick and dirty, hey, how much is this selling for? Yeah. But that doesn't necessarily show you like market movements, trends. Is this thing, in a comic book sense, it would be like, oh, a CGC 9.8 has shot way up in price. I'm seeing the trend line for that, but I'm seeing the trend line for the CGC 9.6 has stayed flat over the last month. There's probably some value in buying the 9.6 because it should follow the 9.8. And I don't know if that happens in the comic book market or not. I assume that it does, but I don't know for sure.
Depends on the book. Yeah.
So it's going to show you stuff like that. Percentages, you could get all sorts of information out of most of them.
That's super helpful. And this is the point that I'm essentially kind of making here, right? That's one of the things that we don't have for comics. We don't have something that's a real-time price tracker, right? And this is something I've talked about before. We are always looking at data essentially in hindsight. And the question is, how far back are you looking at the data, right? You can use eBay, yes, looking at solds, but that is one slice of the pie. It's not the whole pie. But it's like when you start to look at Go Collect and GPA and some of the other pricing services, they are data aggregators, which is great, gives you a more comprehensive picture, but it's all in hindsight. And so you don't have something that is a true ticker like this moment, this book sold for this. You don't have that. So you kind of have to guesstimate. Maybe it's a good thing that we don't have a ticker, because do we want people day trading modern comics? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It would be really interesting. I mean, I could see myself with a couple of monitors here in the office, just like day trading comics, So
I will say when I jumped, so I started buying comic books early last year, right when the pandemic started, not like investment level keys. I literally went back. I bought literally the worst investment books you could. I bought all 4 covers of the Jim Lee X-Men #1 and CGC 9.8.
First of all, there's nothing wrong with that. Especially if they were newsstand, because the newsstands are super hot. I have a set down here at my ankle. Okay. Not a bad set.
Newsstand, because I didn't want to pay the newsstand pricing, because I bought them more for display pieces than I did for investment. But when I started taking it more seriously around Christmas time, one of the very first thing I did was start asking around for people that I knew that were in the comic book market. I was like, hey, what is your data tool? And I was shocked when I looked at what you guys have and how it felt so antiquated. And I'm like, well, this is okay, but like, you guys don't have anything like this? And they're like, no, we don't have anything near like that. And like, none of them update, and everything lags behind a day, but at least it's still pretty close to, that's not bad.
Yeah. Wait a minute, a day for you guys or a day for us?
For us. Anything that happens today will be in tomorrow's charts, essentially.
We lag behind. And that's why like the video that I put out that is the CGC top submitted is a leading indicator, because now you can at least see maybe what's coming. And then you then have your hindsight data, which is your sales data, to see like what happened most recently. So it's like, we don't have anything that fills the gap, that middle gap. And until I released my video, you didn't even have that part of it as to what was being submitted into CGC. So the comparisons between the two industries, I think, are really interesting, the impact that trading card guys are having on comics, I think is really interesting. And I want to definitely thank you for chatting with me to help not just me understand this stuff a little bit better, but the subscribers of my channel as well. Before I let you go, brother, I wanted to give you an opportunity to shout out your channel once again. I don't know if you have anything exciting coming up, but feel free to let people know where to find you on the YouTube machine and just on social media as well.
Best place to find me is the YouTube channel. It's NE Ohio Sports Cards, or if you search for Northeast Ohio Sports Cards, that should get you there too. Most of the content is sports card related, but I have just recently dedicated at least one day of the week to talk about comic book stuff. And then anything that kind of pops up in the news, either comic book or card related, I definitely cover. But most of the videos are sports card related. But like I said, I am committing to doing at least one either comic book or / comic card video per week. I think I'm going to do that about every Monday. I just started it the last couple of weeks. Before that, it was just kind of random when I would throw out comic book stuff. So
and what's interesting, man, is that, you know, we've essentially been talking about these two industries as if they are like separate things. But the reality, kind of like Brandon pointed out at the very beginning of the conversation, there are comic guys that collect cards and card guys that collect comics, and both of which that collect toys. So it's not like we are talking about, you know, two totally separate groups. There are people that literally kind of straddle the line and have always done so. And again, none of that's a bad thing. I personally can only have one vice at a time. I can't do multiple vices. My vice is comics, and that's all that I can do. But again, Rob, I want to sincerely thank you, brother, for coming on, for helping us to make sense of kind of what's happening. You did a fantastic job, and I look forward to watching more of your content down the road.
Same to you, Reggie. This was an absolute blast. Anytime.
Thank you, brother. Be well.
You too.
The guy did a solid job. He did a solid job. We had a robust conversation via DM. And he had a lot more energy than I did at the time, because I had just finished the live stream, and I think he was messaging me, and I had to rally the troops and meet that level of like engagement. But Rob did a really good job, like helping me to understand some of this stuff. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this, because I personally feel like we've been enriched by at least better understanding who and what these trading card guys are and the impact that they are having on our market. And maybe there won't be this precipitous decline in value that many people anticipate as a result of them actually coming in, because maybe some of them will stick around and become real fans of the hobby and continue to enrich the hobby over time. Because at the end of the day, if there are people that are coming to the hobby and enjoying it and sticking around, that is a good thing. I personally, like you, don't love prices going up, because it prices me out of some of the things that I want. But I do want this hobby to survive. And as a result of that, we have to have people come into the hobby. And unfortunately, we cannot pick and choose who those people are. But shout out to all of those sports cards folks that are out there watching this right now. We welcome you. We welcome you with open arms. Just don't compete with us on the books that we are trying to track down. So I am going to wrap this live stream up. I want to, again, thank my guest for coming on and spending a little bit of time with me. I want to thank all of you for chatting with me and being part of this conversation. As always, if you need to reach out to me for any reason at all, do not hesitate to contact me at Regie Collects on Instagram. Take care.